has been rapidly transformed since March, but I have been really encouraged by the incredible ways that employees and their teams are adapting to meet this challenge. And I really appreciate that all of you are joining us today to look at how we can leverage student placement specifically to deliver value for our organizations and also to support students who are really eager to contribute their skills and insights at this critical juncture in their educational and career journey.
Thank you, Abby. And my name is Daniela Pico. I'm the Director of External Relations at Riipen. I wanted to start off just with a little bit of housekeeping. We do have about 150 people on the webinar today, so just wanted to let you all know that you are on mute because of the volume of people. But if you want to engage with us or ask a question, you will notice that there is a little Q&A bubble at the bottom of the screen. You're also welcome to use the chat. And I do have my colleagues Stephen and Mark, who you might also see on the screen, joining us today to help me answer questions. So please don't hesitate to engage with us that way. We will be leaving some time at the end of the session for a Q&A, but feel free to engage with us throughout as questions do come up. So just to start off with an introduction, for those of you who might not have heard about Riipen before, we are an experiential learning platform that focuses on project-based education. What we do is we work to connect businesses and nonprofits of all different shapes and sizes with colleges and universities so that the students can do real-world projects in the classroom. There are three main types of experiences that we work with. So the first one and our most traditional one is called classroom-based experiential education. So for that, we actually work with professors at colleges and universities to help them embed company projects into their class curriculum. So the students are actually working with you throughout the semester to help you solve a business challenge or explore a new opportunity for your business. We also do challenges and hackathons, which are experiences that some of you might be familiar with. These are typically attached to recruitment and recruitment goals. And they're a way for companies to engage directly with students as an alternative to traditional resumes or cover letters. And then the last type of experience, and the one that you're all here to learn about today, is called virtual internships. So virtual internships are relatively new to Riipen, and I'll let Abby get a little bit more into why we made the decision to start with those. But Riipen has been around for about 6 years. We have a network of over 5,000 industry partners that we work with, as I mentioned, all different shapes and sizes. And we work with about 150 post-secondary institutions globally, but primarily in the US and Canada. So without further ado, Abby, I'll let you get started.
Great, thank you so much, Danny. So I wanted to start just with some context around the challenges that we're experiencing now and why we're choosing to make this shift to virtual internships. So as we are all experiencing, COVID-19 has presented unprecedented challenges to our companies of all sizes and industry. So many of us, Riipen included, have shifted very rapidly to entirely remote work. And we're also contending with hiring freezes for a lot of companies, reduced headcounts, and just general uncertainty about the future. So really, regardless of what your plans may have been for student hires this summer, this fall, you are likely dealing with some kind of reduction in resources for many of your existing projects and other new initiatives. If you were planning for student hires before COVID, now it's very likely that you have to shift these positions to be entirely virtual for the first time. And that's not something that we typically do, even at Riipen with student hires. We wouldn't typically bring them on remotely. We want to be able to support them in office. So figuring out how to do that management and supervision is going to be a challenge, especially when you are dealing with a reduction in other resources in your organization. So I think it's really clear that given the current circumstances, especially for small and medium businesses, we're just unable to bear the cost of time and money that a traditional internship would require. And what this means for schools and students is, of course, a drop in what's available in terms of placement. So it's predicted, at least in Canada, that because of COVID-19, up to 40% of summer placements and internships are going to be reduced or canceled entirely. And that has really devastating impact for students. So it's likely they're going to be graduating into an extremely challenging labor market, possibly the most challenging that we've seen in our lifetimes, and without the work and hands-on experience that they're going to need to find meaningful employment. And as a result of this, in the last month, we at Riipen have received many requests from universities and colleges that we work with across Canada and the US, and they're asking for help to find alternatives to these placements that are being lost. And they are being really open to the changing needs and capacities of our companies and businesses. The priority here is for students to get that work integrated and hands-on experience, and schools are accepting that this is going to look a little bit different. So they are accepting fully virtual placements, and they're being really flexible around the scope and the length of the placement. So whereas in the past they may have required a 4-month full-time summer co-op placement, they are increasingly open to a more flexible arrangement. So full or part-time, and placements that we're seeing on our platform that are as short as 3 weeks. So we've got companies that are contending with this reduction in budget, reduction in bandwidth to take on a traditional internship. How do these virtual internships solve for those challenges? So we see 3 key benefits. The first is to easily connect to students who are willing to work with you virtually. So you don't have to worry about not having access to that physical office space. The second is that there's more flexibility around the work arrangement, either the length of it or the hours, how it's set up. And the third is that it's a low-cost way to tackle those ongoing projects and initiatives that you now likely have fewer resources for. So I want to dive into the first one a little bit, accessible virtual hires. So by necessity, because of COVID, we're seeing that most schools are now accepting virtual internships and placements in almost all cases as an alternative to their traditional internships. And so this means that you can easily access virtual hires. You do not have to worry about accommodating these students on site or in a physical office space. And you're likely going to find that an added benefit of engaging a student right now is that most, if not all of them, are digital natives. They're really used to working in the way that we are all adapting to, so they can really easily adapt to these remote work practices. And given their advanced knowledge of collaboration tools and technologies, they might actually be able to help your other team members in this transition to remote work, which is great. The second piece, so flexible work arrangements. What does that mean? So first of all, as I said, a lot of these placements are now shorter. So we've seen placements that can be as short as 3 weeks, longer if you would like, but there's a lot of flexibility there. The hours can also be flexible. So the school is going to provide a guideline to you on 120 hours minimum or total, but you can work with them to arrange for it to be done part-time if that suits you better. So really, as with all of the experiences that run on Riipen, whether it's an in-class project or now a virtual internship, we just want to be really flexible, and it's up to you and the school to determine an internship arrangement that's going to work for all parties. And finally, we are seeing a shift to a project focus. And this is to help companies who might not have had capacity to support an intern in the past. And we want you to be able to participate and benefit from these placements as well. So what I mean by that is that instead of bringing on an intern to take on a role in your business, like data analyst intern, you can bring them on to execute a data analytics project for you. And some schools are even offering the option to engage a team of students at the same time to take on a substantial project of your choosing. So if you are finding yourself in that situation where you've had to pause hiring and you don't have open roles for interns, co-ops, and students, consider whether you do have a project or several projects that could actually benefit from a few weeks or more of student help. And I want to dive into this a little bit more. So how can we adapt an internship or a placement if our resources are constrained? So how do we shift from a role approach to a project-based approach, and what does that look like? So this is a model that Riipen does have a lot of experience in. This is what we facilitate on our platform. We have run almost 3,000 virtual projects on Riipen that usually span the duration of a semester. So companies are proposing a project to students, they're working on that project virtually, over 8 to 12 weeks with some touch points, but not a lot of supervision. And this has always been a great lower cost option for companies who wanted to engage in students, but were not able to hire any for full-time positions. So this model has proven really successful for us, and we see that most of our companies are running a few projects like this per year. So we think that it can be applied as a way to also make it more manageable for you to support a virtual internship. So by providing your intern with a central project, you're ensuring that they can always fall back on that project. So on those days, and there may be many of those days where you do not have the bandwidth to assign daily tasks or other ongoing support work to your student, they can fall back on that project. They have something to do that's meaningful, that's going to make a contribution to your company. What it also means from a training perspective is that when you shift to a project focus, instead of a role-based internship, it also means that you don't have to onboard that student to every single process and every single tool that would typically be required for a particular role or for someone joining your team. And as I'm sure many of us, if we've done onboarding in the past, have experienced, this kind of onboarding can be really labor intensive, even when the student is able to work in an office with you, let alone when it's remote and you can't provide any hands-on support. So there is, certainly a bit more effort required up front to scope the project, to decide what project you'd like the student to take on. But once you've assigned it to them, they should require less supervision throughout the course of the placement, which is great. And you also have the benefit now of knowing what you're going to get at the end of this placement. So as opposed to a more open-ended role where you don't necessarily know what that data intern is going to provide to your company over the course of a 4-month placement, you go into this knowing these are the concrete project deliverables that I am going to get at the conclusion of this experience. And one final benefit for other folks on your team is that this could actually be a great development opportunity for some of your junior team members who are looking for project management experience. So perhaps they can help to scope the project for this student or this team of students and provide that supervision and support over the course of the placement so that they're actually benefiting from this as well. So here's just an example of what this pivot or conversion from a role-based internship to a project-based internship could look like. So perhaps a month ago you were considering hiring a marketing intern, and now you no longer can. So consider whether you have one or several marketing projects that do need attention. Could you assign those projects to a student and have the student get a really meaningful work experience in the process? So instead of hiring a marketing intern to work for you full-time for 4 months, you could take a student on from one of our schools, full or part-time, for as short as 3 or 4 weeks, and have them tackle a meaty project of your choosing. So maybe you want them to do a competitive landscape review for you. Maybe you are in the process of trying to launch a new social media account. I know a lot of people are trying to generate new content very quickly as we adapt to COVID. So that's something the student could do for you. And they could actually write a lot of content, maybe 5, 10, 20 blog posts for you or articles over the course of that placement. Maybe they can come in to do some social media analytics for you and actually implement the improvements. So one great benefit to doing something like this with a student is that they're working for you, even if it's for 3 weeks, that's enough time for them to actually implement the work. So you're not just stopping at a project plan or some research and recommendations, they can actually implement something of value for you. So once you've determined, and I hope you're considering this, that you can support a student in some capacity in the coming months, I want to talk about why this internship model is a preferable way to do it. So the first is that you are getting students who are vetted by the institution. So that means that the educator or someone in career services, the internship coordinator, is going to be assigning that student or that team of students to you based on your specific needs. So based on the proposal you've made about the type of placement that you want. And as with our regular Riipen projects, the students are paired to you based on their program of study. So if we think of that previous example, that marketing intern is coming from a marketing program. So that means the student has come to you with foundational skills that are going to help them hit the ground running on your projects and tasks. So you don't have to teach them everything under the sun. They're coming to you ready to hit the ground running. and they're going to be applying skills that they have already learned in the classroom to your business needs. So now you're benefiting from their insights, from their experience, and they also have this critical opportunity to gain practical experience. It's more critical now than ever in fields that they would really like to enter post-graduation. So there is real value here, both to you, the company, but also to the student that really wants this opportunity to showcase their skills. And a little bit more about that relationship with the school. So what supports are our partner schools going to provide? So the first is that these internships and placements that we're talking about that you'll see on Riipen, they have all been initiated and will be managed by the college or university. So what that means is the school is going to set up a framework for the internship. They're going to provide guidance through their postings on Riipen that will tell you about the types of work and projects their students can do for you, the hours, the duration, and you don't need to scope that placement from scratch. So that's the first thing. In terms of project management, the school is also going to include some milestones, and you can work with the school to adapt these milestones for the students so we can actually build into Riipen to remind them of key deadlines and stage gates during that placement that will help to keep them on track while they're working with you. And then finally, as they normally would for an on-site internship, the school is going to keep in place any oversight and check-ins that they would normally do with the students that they hire. So between Riipen and the tools on our platform and the school itself, we are doing quite a bit of the heavy lifting on the project management side. So I hope at this point that we've convinced at least some of you that this is an approach worth exploring. And now I want to dive into a few best practices for actually supporting that student if you bring them on board. So a few best practices on how to support once you've matched with a school and student. How do you actually get prepared? So the first thing will happen through Riipen. You're going to get asked to provide a primary and backup contact for the student to get in touch with you. And you're going to want to establish the communication channels that you'll be using to work with the student. And we provide a lot of those for you that are available to you. So we have chat, we have file share, video functionality that you can use to collaborate with your student. And then of course, any of your own tools that you would like to invite them to. So whatever is going to make it easiest for the student to stay connected with their immediate team members. You're going to want to establish a rhythm for those check-ins. What's it going to look like? What platforms are you going to be using to keep in touch with the student, Slack or email, and how frequently do you want to be checking in with them? And you may also want to suggest some milestones to the school that we can embed on Riipen so the student gets automatic reminders through our platform of any of the project milestones that you would like them to achieve over the course of the placement. So now the placement is beginning and you have to onboard the student. And this is something that Riipen has some recent experience in. So I have onboarded 5 new employees remotely in the last few weeks. Most of these individuals we have never met in person. And this is new for Riipen. In the past, even if we had remote team members, they always joined us in the office for the first few days of work. So this is a shift for us. And I have to say the experience has been really positive. We found that new team members joining right now are really understanding of this new reality. They're prepared to engage virtually. So onboarding is probably going to look really similar to what it used to look like. It's just going to be happening virtually. So you're going to set up that first same-day training session to get them onto your systems, to introduce them to the project that you've scoped out and the teams they're going to be working with. You're just going to be sending them that video conference link. One benefit that we've found is that we no longer have to worry about any of the logistics of coordinating meetings with team members in different cities and booking rooms. I'm sure we've all dealt with that challenge. It's really easy to get everyone in one room when the sessions are virtual. And as I mentioned earlier, students tend to be digital natives and might be better at these tools than you. That's certainly been my experience with the new grads and students that we've engaged with. And the last point, of course, and I don't think this is new to anyone that's on this call, is that we don't want to forget the human element. So with any new team member, we want to include the usual social touch points that we normally would for someone we bring onto the team. And a lot of you are probably doing this already. already. So things like virtual team lunches or even virtual work blocks that we've been using at Riipen, where team members can drop into a Zoom meeting or a Google Hangout and actually work independently side by side for 30 minutes or an hour and ask each other questions. They can sort of mimic being in the same room together. So now that we've talked a little bit about why the shift to virtual internships and how you would work with the school, I want to talk a little bit about the platform itself. So how would you use Riipen to actually initiate and leverage a virtual placement? So there are 4 steps that we're going to cover. The first is to prepare for the internship or placement, to match with that school and then with the students, to manage the placement, and to give feedback. So the first step is to actually browse what's available for our partner schools. And we're going to show you in a few moments a few examples of some of those opportunities of schools that are looking for companies to engage with right now. So if you see one that interests you, all you have to do is submit a 1-page proposal that the school can review to see if it's a match. And you're going to do this using a wizard that we've built into Riipen. And we have actually created a virtual internship template that you can use that I'll show in a moment. So you do not need to start from scratch. After you've done that, you can also post your proposal, your 1-page internship proposal, to our open marketplace. So schools can also see it there and request to connect with you. The next step, once you've made that virtual introduction, is to actually speak with the educator or the placement coordinator, with someone in career services, to make sure that this is a fit for both of you. And you can also use this call or this conversation as an opportunity to finalize the details of what the student is going to be working on for you, how long is the placement going to last, what hours the student will be working, and so on. And once you've decided to work together, the school will introduce the students to you. And if you do normally go through an interview process, the school can also work with you to set up those interviews as you normally would to decide which students you want to work with. This is what the project wizard looks like. It's a very quick 5-step process with some fields for you to fill out, and it shouldn't take more than 15 minutes, particularly if you're using that placement template that we've created. So what we've done is we've put some best practice content and cues there for you to help you scope the placement and increase your chances of matching with that academic program. You're also going to have seen the posting from the school, so you're going to have a sense of what it is that that school is looking for. So to recap in terms of the connection, there are 2 ways to match with this virtual intern or student. You can apply directly to a posting from a school, or you can post your internship idea to our open marketplace and field requests from a school. And hopefully you'll do both. So really either party can make that first connection. And while we have set up Riipen for you to connect with the schools on your own, we do also have a fantastic client success team that will help you with matchmaking. So once we know the type of internship or placement that you are looking for, our CS team will identify opportunities at our schools based on your interests and needs, and they'll make some tailored recommendations to you about who you should be connecting with. So finally, the internship kicks off and the student is working with you. So in terms of that management and feedback, we expect that you're probably going to want to use your existing collaboration tools to work with the student, and that's absolutely fine. But again, you also have available to you all the tools we built into Riipen, chat, video chat, and the milestone feature to keep the students on track. And then at the end of the internship, you can also use Riipen to provide the student with some meaningful feedback that they can display on their profile. So I'll just show what a few of these features look like. Here you can see for one of the virtual internships, the milestones that are actually built into Riipen. And so this means the student's automatically going to get notified about upcoming deadlines during their placement. And you and the school are going to be able to track how the students are progressing against their milestones. And if you're working with more than one student or team, the nice thing is that you can see how everyone is progressing in one central location. So it should make that oversight a little bit more seamless. And here's just a visual of our Riipen chat. So as I mentioned, you can use this to chat with the students, to launch video, to file share, and to book meetings. All of that is built right into Riipen to use to communicate with your student before the placement to get things set up, in addition, of course, to any of your own systems that the student joins. And when we talk about providing feedback at the end of the placement, this is what it looks like. So it's relatively short, but we are going to ask you to provide some feedback on the student's performance, on their core competencies, and also to validate any of the skills that they've demonstrated. And then you have the opportunity to write some feedback. So you can give them both public and private written feedback. And that public feedback is automatically going to get pulled to the student's Riipen profile, where they can highlight their placement and experience with your company and the feedback that you've shared. They can put that on their CV, on their LinkedIn as they continue through their career journey. So really the ideal outcome of this experience is not only that you are benefiting from the student's skills and foundational knowledge that they brought from their program of study, but they're also benefiting by gaining hands-on experience in their field of study, and hopefully that's going to help them find meaningful employment when they graduate. So if you are ready to get started and explore this further, I would love now to highlight just a few of the opportunities that are available from our partner schools right now. And there are more than the ones that you see here, but this should give you a sense of what those opportunities look like. So here are just a few examples of programs in both Canada and the US that are looking for companies to take on virtual interns this summer or fall. So you can see that we have opportunities in a variety of business areas. So we've got IT, we've got marketing, HR, fashion. There is a lot of flexibility depending on your work and your project needs. We also have a mix of internships that are paid, meaning that you will be required to provide remuneration to the student. And we also have placements that are for credit, meaning the internship is done for course or program credit. So there is a mix. There is also variety in the range of student levels to choose from. So for example, just highlighting this opportunity from Pepperdine University, this is a placement that is with MBA students. So all of these students are in the MBA program at Pepperdine. This is a paid or for credit placement, and it's 5 weeks or 200 hours long. So definitely shorter than a traditional placement. And you will be working with a team of students on a project of your choosing. So you're getting a lot of resources to tackle this project for you. And since these are MBA students, they're generalists. There's a lot of different things that they can do. So you can see a real range of project options, from marketing to workforce planning to data analytics. So that's just one example. This next example from George Brown College is really interesting because it's a field placement that now, because of COVID, they're actually running very similarly to a traditional virtual project on Riipen. So the way this would work is you would propose a marketing project to an entire class of postgraduate marketing students at George Brown. The students are going to work in teams of 4 to complete this project for you, and they're going to be coached by their instructor. So minimal supervision is required from you. And at the end of the semester, the class and the instructor will determine which are the top project deliverables that you're actually going to receive. So you'll receive, the best that has been produced by that class. So this would be a really awesome option if you just don't have capacity to hire a student even part-time. This would be a way to still engage students in taking on a significant project for you. And this final example is a paid internship that comes from Ontario Tech University. Again, a shorter placement, so 120 hours or 3 weeks of work, but it can happen between May and August. So a lot of flexibility on how you structure those hours that you're working with the student. And in this case, you would have a choice of working with a student from either the BCom program or a Bachelor of IT program, depending on what your highest priority project needs are. So one of these students would take on a substantial project of your choosing. And again, there's some really flexible options here. So everything from accounting and finance to HR, marketing, and even IT, security, and networking. So if you are interested in learning more about any of these opportunities from our partner schools or other placements that we are offering, and you'd like to find out how you can get matched with students, there are a couple of ways that you can get started with this process. So the first is that you can email us directly at internships@riipen.com. And you can also book a call with our team directly so that we can learn a little bit more about your business and how we can meet your needs through a virtual placement. placement. So we are going to be sharing this direct booking link in the chat, and we will also send it via email when we follow up with this presentation and with the materials that we have shared here today. So I want to thank everyone for your attention. It's been fantastic to speak with you today about virtual internships and placements. And we'd now like to take some time to answer your questions. So I'll turn it over to Daniela and Stephen. Do we have any questions in the chat that we'd like to answer live?
We do, Abby, and thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. We are still monitoring the chat and the Q&A, so please feel free to keep sending us your questions. We'll do our best to answer them live. So I'll start off, actually, I think, Stephen, you're the best person to answer this question. As a company, how does the virtual internship sign-up process work, and do I get to choose the student that I work with?
Absolutely. So it's a really simple sign-up process. So we have one of our staff who will guide you through it and talk you through it while you're there. And then once you're signed up and you're on the program, you have those two ways of connecting. You either connect with the institution because you've posted a project or a virtual internship opportunity and they respond to it, or you find one that you're interested in that's already being posted. And then really it depends on the school that you're working with and the program as to whether you're talking directly to that student or whether you're working through the career services or with the professor. And we guide you through that. We like to, it's a matchmaking, and we like to think of our onboarding specialists and our client success team as matchmakers.
Thank you, Stephen. And I'll give this one both to Stephen and Abby. I'm sure you'll both have some to add, but just following up from that previous question, a little bit more about how the process works. We have a question from Jason that says, we've traditionally done role-based internships. What sort of assistance do you provide in terms of developing meaningful project-based internships? It's a mindset shift for our organization, and I could see this being done well or not so well. We're unwilling to give the students have the students bearing the burden of our unfamiliarity with this mode, which is great, Jason.
Thank you. I'll take that one, Jason, and Abby, you can chime in. And I'll use a personal example from that one, actually. So my side hustle is that I run a tea company, and we've just decided, I started at Riipen fairly recently, and I believe that you should try the products where you can. And so we've taken on a couple interns now, and where those started actually is that those started where they were role-based, and we didn't have the capacity to use a role-based internship, especially when it became a virtual one. So we created project outcomes out of that. And we turned what the role was and what the goal of that role was, and we broke it down. We said, here's a concrete project that these students can work on with and approaching it through a project management technique, and saying, look, here are the milestones and everything like that, so that we could actually make sure that those students were getting the right thing out of the engagement, and that we were getting something concrete out of it at the end as well. I hope I answered the question, but if you have more, then please feel free. Yes, Abby.
Yeah, I'd love to add, just in terms of the platform as well, because we have run almost 3,000 projects through the platform. There is a great library that would be available to you, and that is one of the things that our client success team can help with. So in terms of project scoping, we're happy to look at what that role-based internship looked like and share some examples from our existing project library of a project that aligns to that area of your business that you could actually work off of and adapt for your purposes. So we've done this many times in terms of virtual projects, and I think this is sort of can be a natural extension of that. So all of those existing case studies and examples would be available to you.
Thank you both. Abby, I think this is a really interesting question for you. It's from Robert, who says, a couple of times you've mentioned the advantages of having digital natives for these assignments. I get why that's good for the company, but how about the students? Indeed, internships are a valuable way for students to get a step away from their digital nativism and acclimatize to mission, culture, supervision, and relationship management, and soft skills generally. So I think the end to the question is, these opportunities seem to reinforce digital nativism, not compensate for it. How do we square this circle? So I think if I were to ask that question as well, which is something I wonder about, is how do we ensure that there's still the opportunity for some of that soft skills development when we are working in this digital environment?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's something we're, again, contending with at Riipen as we shift to be working this way all the time. And in some ways, I think soft skills become more of a challenge when you are working digitally. So if I use the example of an interview, it's a lot harder for someone to perform well on a virtual video interview than it might be in person. So I think you're actually having to flex some of those soft and communication skills even more. When you are communicating over Slack or email, you have to be super purposeful in the way that you are requesting information or sharing updates, because it can be really distracting otherwise. So I think even for our existing team members, we've actually had to invest in improving some of our soft skills so that they adapt well to be on a digital platform. So I actually think there is a really good opportunity for a student coming into that environment to learn how to hone certainly their written communication. I think that's one of the things that's going to come up the most, because we are using messaging platforms so much more right now, and you don't have that nuance necessarily of face-to-face communication. But then even over video, it's harder to make a connection through a screen. So you have to really work more on, how do I build rapport with someone quickly? How do I make that meaningful connection with a team member, with a prospect, with a client when I can't be in the room with them? So I think there's a really interesting opportunity for them to even get stronger soft skills potentially out of the experience.
Thank you, Abby. Stephen, did you want to add anything?
I think Abby covered that one. Thank you, Abby.
Great. So the next question here is more specifically, what kind of communication tool is used when we opt in for an internship? How will the university students communicate with the owners of a company? And is there a special platform necessary which will have all of the data? So Abby or Stephen, feel free to take that one.
I can take that one.
Sure.
So the tool that we have is the Riipen platform. So we've integrated all of the required communication tools onto the Riipen platform. So we have chat, you can send messages, you can have documents, we have video chat, etc. That is all on that platform. Now, that said, we know that a lot of companies use things like Slack or Zoom and things like that, and we're not trying to discourage you from using those. So if those are tools that are already embedded into your organization, we don't want the fact that we have them in ours to be a barrier for you to use what's already embedded in your organization. So you have the option.
Great, Stephen. Thank you. And we have actually a few more questions. I'm going to try to cluster some of these together. So one of them is, assuming that the internship has been successful and we want to extend a permanent offer to one or more of the participants, is there any constraints around that relationship, specifically around recruiting or conversion fees? So Stephen, if you want to go ahead and take that one.
Absolutely. A lot of our customers actually use our services, use our platform as a recruitment tool. And it's in effect, it's a try before you buy. So it's an excellent way to try out and to get a whole list of, get a whole bunch of students who have done projects with you, done virtual internships with you. And then when you do have a spot open up, to actually be able to hire them. So we don't take a conversion fee. We don't take any of that. You can make your offers directly with that student and put them through your normal processes. So there's no recruitment fee or anything like that. And it is a great way. We actually just hired one of my salespeople. Is actually somebody who 3 years ago did a Riipen program. So that's great.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen. And just to add to that, Riipen's mission is to support students in gaining meaningful employment post-graduation. So we understand that not every business and nonprofit partner is able to hire students, and there's certainly no expectation of that, but we try to reduce the friction as much as possible if you do want to give them an employment offer after. So I'm gonna ask a question and then also take it myself. It's from Christine, who's asking, she's saying that they have an internship program that has already interviewed and vetted young adult interns. They're ready for an internship this summer, and is Riipen able to match companies with programs other than colleges and universities? So Crystal, the short answer would be yes, we are more than happy to have a conversation about it, and really encourage you to reach out to us as well if there's anyone else who is in that position where you work directly with students but might not fall under the university or college category. Please reach out. As long as you're working directly with students and trying to train them for employment, we see alignment in our mission and vision there.
And I can just add to that, Danny?
For sure.
As well. So that also applies. I know that I'm fairly new to the space, and assume that a student is somebody who's just gone through high school, gone through university or college. But that also applies to people that are being reskilled. And as we're finding through, and as these times will show us as well, is they're going through periods of time when people are being reskilled, and those students need just as much support when they come out of that reskilling as somebody who's just gone directly through a more traditional route. So we actually have programs for that as well.
So we have a question here from Robert, who says, companies pay to use Riipen. Do the schools pay as well? Stephen, if you want to elaborate on the companies one, I'm happy to talk a little bit more about the schools.
Sure, absolutely. So what our model is it's a subscription-based model. So you'll pay a subscription fee based on how much you pay, an annual subscription fee based on how many either interns you're likely to use, virtual interns, or projects you're likely to run. So they run from approximately $1,000 for $1,000 US or 1,400 Canadian for 3 projects, up to an enterprise level. And you discuss that based on your needs and how many projects you expect to run. So that's how the way it works on the company's level. Did you want to address on the schools level as well then, Danny?
Yeah, definitely. Happy to do that. So for Riipen, what we provide to the schools is a form of an end-to-end solution to grow and scale project-based experiential education. So our goal is to get them connected to industry partners, but also to help them track, manage, and report on the growth of these types of experiences on campus. And the schools do pay Riipen a fee. It's based on the total student enrollment for their institution and based on the level of adoption that they want to have. So the price would be different for an individual department, let's say just the School of Business, versus an entire campus. We have another question as well, where I think, Abby, you might be able to take the first bit of this. So the question is from Kate, and she's asking, many universities have or are developing experiential learning services and departments on campus. Are there benefits to working with universities directly? So I think just to start us off in that, on that question, it's not an either or. So just because you utilize the Riipen platform as a way of connecting with universities, that doesn't mean that there isn't direct engagement with them. And Abby, I'll let you take that based on your previous experience as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we mentioned, you would actually be engaging with the school directly. So we are just a platform to be able to facilitate that connection, but we don't want to get in the way of that connection by any means. So when you see an internship or a placement that's available through a college or university or an in-class opportunity, you are reaching directly out to either the professor that teaches that course, or you're reaching out directly to the internship or placement coordinator or individual in career services. So, just by submitting your proposal, you launch into a chat with them. And so you are in that way working with them directly.
Great, thank you, Abby. And then another question from Agostino, who's asking, do schools provide short training for how to work in a virtual internships project? And actually, I'll follow up with another question that we had as well that was around, can we provide more examples of what a project-focused internship could be? So in terms of I think we'll start off with answering the question about training on how a project-based internship might work. And then potentially we can provide some more examples of what these project-based internships have looked like.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are in a lot of co-op and internship programs that students are in, there is often a required component to help them prepare to take on a work integrated experience. So I can't speak for every school, but I would expect that those resources and that curriculum would continue to be delivered, whether or not the placement is going to be virtual. In terms of additional examples, we've got 25 different categories of projects on our platform. So there is a really broad range. I would say they could be sort of on the strategy side, where students are taking on a strategic project and doing a lot of research, whether that be market research or research with your data to provide you with recommendations. Of course, given that this is now an internship and it's a little bit longer, they could also maybe implement some of those recommendations. We have projects that might be more technical. So a lot of students in computer science and IT programs that might be able to develop a website for you in WordPress, or develop a prototype of a new application for you. So it really depends. It's hard to say because it depends on the program of study, but the programs of study that we work with would range from undergraduate programs to postgraduate certificate programs to continuing education and master's programs as well. So really any project that's related to what's being covered in that program could be taken on by that intern. I don't know if there's anything that you want to add there, Stephen, in terms of examples.
I think so. I think one thing we found that a lot of our customers have found quite useful is that as a business person, you always have a bunch of things that you just haven't had a chance to get done, and somebody scoped out a project for you and you just haven't had a chance to get it done. So we've actually found this is a good way for people to bring in help from the outside, bring in a virtual intern in order to help them actually execute on something that otherwise there just wasn't enough money or bandwidth to get done.
Thank you both. So I think we will wrap up there. I wanted to remind everybody about what some of the next steps might be. So as I imagine, all of your businesses and needs look a little bit different. We do, as Abby and Stephen mentioned, have consultations so that we can help you figure out the best use that your business can make of the Riipen platform. So please feel free to reach out to us. Either the link, which I'll be posting in the chat again, which lets you book a call directly, or as Abby mentioned, you're welcome to send us an email. After this, for all of those who have registered, I will also be sending up the recording of this, the slides, and then a follow-up on what the next steps could be. So you're welcome to either reply directly to that email and I'll put you in touch with the right people, or connect with Stephen directly, who also shared his email in the chat. Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you Abby and Stephen for helping to answer the questions, and we look forward to working with some of you in the future.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.